Back in the 1990s, something strange started happening in pop culture. We had the death of Superman, who's, perhaps America's greatest mythological hero. We had another one of my heroes as a boy, Hulk Hogan. He was this larger-than-life pro wrestler, this cultural phenomenon, and he was supposedly this archetypal hero that was embodying the virtues of training hard, saying your prayers, and eating your vitamins.
Train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, be true to yourself, true to your country, be a real American. Whew.
But then all of a sudden in the 1990s, he goes from this babyface hero to a dressed in all black, cynical villain. And then we had like my generation's Woodstock 99. Woodstock 99 ended in literal chaos and destruction. I think the anthem of Woodstock 99 was Limp Bizkit's. Yeah, if you've never heard, that is a real band. Limp Bizkit's Break Stuff. And ever since then, I feel as if American culture has been stuck in this like break stuff cynicism. Today, I've got on Deep Talks a wonderful, this guy is one of my favorite podcast hosts and YouTube channel hosts. It is easily my most favorite, that's double superlatives there, my favoritist channel on philosophy. I'm glad to have back today Parker Settecase. Parker, thanks for joining us on Deep Talks again.
Yeah, man, this is awesome. I'm stoked for it. Yeah, this is a great topic. So I don't know. I think we'll probably end up all over the place, but I love to chop it up with you.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. So Parker's got on a shirt today of one of my top. This is one of my deserted island television series. If I'm stuck on a deserted island, give me Batman the animated series. Give me Star Trek The Next Generation. Give me Seinfeld. Probably something else, but Batman the animated series is up there. We're talking about heroes. We're talking about superheroes. We're talking about the death of Superman in our culture as a symbol. I remember a time before all the cynicism. I do have recollections of honestly loving. Hulk Hogan was essentially a wrestling version of Superman. As a kid, I was a Hulkamaniac, and I loved. I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I didn't have cynicism. It's hard for people to picture a time where you could sit through Rocky IV in the movie theater and watch it unironically.
Hulk will know my name. Drago.
I let it happen.
It is painfully sincere to postmodern sensibilities. But you're illustrating this point for me, Parker, about I don't think if this has been the grammar and vocabulary of culture that you have lived in, you've breathed in, you communicated in your entire life, my argument that I'm doing some writing on, hopefully to turn into a book here, is that the formative power of that has impacted us in ways that I don't think we are fully aware of in shaping our appetites for a Homelander. Because it's like, yeah, that's, the Homelander critique comes, before Amazon's The Boys picked it up. It was a graphic novel series. I believe it came out in 2006. So we're in, post 9/11 world, Iraq war, Afghanistan, a lot of critiques about America's place in the world. Are we doing more harm than good? And the associations of the religious right with the wars of Iraq and Afghanistan, because we had a professing evangelical president, made the Homelander critique
the righteous shall rejoice when
pretty spot on. If you were going to critique well, we've thought Superman is this, but let me show you what Superman actually is. I get it. I get why it happened in that time, in that moment. I think there's room for critique. What I'm suggesting, Parker, is that I think there's a difference, and this is the problem postmodernism had, whether it's pop culture or all of the true iterations of it, if Homelander is going to critique the pictures of Superman that we have and call us to see how they're morally deficient, you have to intrinsically be appealing to some higher story. The critique is only valid insofar as you have some other referential point that you're going to and saying, we are missing the moral mark. So you can't lecture me on why America's place in the world is morally depraved and how the actions we're taking and the religious right and all this other stuff. You can't give me that Homelander critique unless you have some sort of other higher story that you're appealing to. If you're telling me there's no higher story, I don't have to listen to your critique at all. Homelander resonated with the culture and still does to a certain degree, though I think it's dying, because we intrinsically know, and I think there have been other deep formative stories in our lives that have said, no, there is a higher story. There is a higher aspiration that we can go to. I'd like to think aspirationally that the gap between Homelander and my ideals represents some true story that I'm actually yearning for. Otherwise, what we're left with is an endless cycle of cynicism. Yeah. And that's what I feel when I watch The Boys now. Is I feel like, when I saw that graphic novel in 2006, I go, yeah, but it's because I have a story that I'm going, yeah, I don't want to get into politics here, but I think loving your neighbor, and historically a Christian commitment to, at the very least, just war theory, if not non-aggression, is a pretty historic Christian commitment. If I see that in the world and I see what appears to be like wars of aggression, or I see behavior in war that is clearly like from whether it's Augustine or Ambrose, this is not just war principle, I can critique that because I have a higher story. If I don't have a higher story, dude, then the Boys thing just becomes endless cynicism.
Yeah.
What do you think about all that?
I think you're right. And so C.S. Lewis kind of famously predicted a lot of like the popular understanding of postmodernism with the abolition of man, which he then put all the sentiments and ideas into the third book in the Ransom trilogy. I'm forgetting the name right now. I have it.
That Hideous Strength.
That Hideous Strength, yeah. With the objective room and stuff like that. But Lewis has this amazing line where he's like, look, you can't go on seeing through everything, because to see through everything is to be blind. You can't see anything any longer. And so I think that hits on your point, where it's like, you can't just critique endlessly. You have to have something that you're trying to draw people towards. One, you have more credibility if you can, and you're actually trying to put something forward yourself instead of just ripping down everything else. And I think that's when you're just tearing, that's where it's just cynical. And it is like a prison. You can't enjoy things any longer because you have to sneer at it.
Have you found it like even just personally exhausting, or are you like, no, I could take about 5 more years of this?
No. It's exhausting. My brother is 8 years older than me, so he's had a different experience than I have. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, bro, what's up with your humor and stuff? I'm like, I'm sorry, man. This is how I am.
I'm 41.
So
I get
that. You're probably, you guys are Oregon Trail millennials.
For sure.
So I never played Oregon Trail. Like I played it with them maybe when I was really small, but there's like a weird kind of gap too, where I started having a cell phone when I was 8th grade, freshman year of high school. And so it just, that I do get exhausted. When memes came out, I almost started crying because I was like, other people see it too. And I genuinely almost started crying when memes came out, because I'm like, someone else gets it. Holy cow. That's my sense of humor. So that was really wild to see that connection with so many other people who were like, yeah, this is, we're going to critique culture and stuff through memes. And other people were like, what is a meme? And I'm like, dude, you guys are so off. This is finally, it's here. And then seeing like, oh, it can't just be that. You can't just meme everything to death. You actually have to have something to build on, but we don't know how to do that in a way that's resistant to our own critique. And so that's really exhausting. So that's why I hold on to things like Batman, the animated series, because you're like, No, dude, there's one that's uncritiquable. You know, like we've got one story. I really like Invincible. I think that's another story that comes through where if you haven't read the comics, I don't know, like the Amazon Prime is probably not going to do it justice. But in the comics, you have the Homelander critique of Superman with Omni-Man, but he has a son, and his son was raised as an American child. He's half Asian, so he's got some of that in there too. And he changes the whole Viltrumite ethos of being a cosmic Sparta to being an America at its best, of accepting the other, of being able to destroy anyone with might, but not doing so. Like all the ideals that. What's that?
You saying Mark does that or Omni-Man?
Mark does that. He does. Robert Kirkman does that through Mark. Yeah. And so into the future, like the last couple comic books. So I have the huge omnibus, 3-part omnibus. Like the last third of the last omnibus is all this hope, and it's amazing. And so all that like darkness you had to get through, he brings you to a catastrophe at the end, and you're like, dude, you did it. You did it without being cheesy and corny. That is a vision of the American way that we've probably never hit, but like we can look to as an ideal. And so I think you can still do it. Maybe that is metamodernism. I've only really heard that term from you, and then from other people. Like I first heard it from you and other people. I wouldn't pretend to like super know what it is, but it's like it's touched by postmodernism enough to not be naive like modernism, and yet it doesn't fall victim to the critique and making just garbage with a wink so that we're all in the inside joke.
Yeah, you've nailed the definition.